The gala was the kind of event that people only dreamed of attending. From the outside, the venue looked like a palace, with sparkling lights stretching across its grand facade. Red carpets lined the entrance, and photographers waited with their cameras ready, eager to capture every glamorous guest who stepped out of sleek, luxury cars. The air buzzed with excitement, and there was a feeling that anything could happen tonight. Inside, the room was even more spectacular. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm, golden glow over the elegantly dressed crowd. The floors gleamed like polished mirrors, reflecting the lights and the glitter of designer gowns. Everywhere, there was a mix of laughter, clinking glasses, and the soft hum of conversations that hinted at secret deals, old rivalries, and new friendships being formed. The heiress arrived with the kind of confidence that made heads turn. Her dress sparkled under the lights, perfectly tailored to her figure, and her jewelry shimmered with every step. People whispered her name as she passed, some admiring, some judging, but everyone watching. She was known in high society not just for her wealth, but for her charm and her tendency to make headlines. Tonight, however, it seemed she was determined to be the center of attention from the moment she arrived. She smiled politely at the crowd, but her eyes scanned the room with sharp awareness, noting who was there, who wasn't, and who might be watching her every move. The room was filled with a mix of guests, each carrying their own stories. Celebrities chatted in small clusters, laughing and showing off their latest fashion statements. Socialites floated through the crowd, exchanging polite greetings while carefully observing everyone else. Business magnates moved with a quiet authority, their presence alone demanding respect. The air smelled faintly of expensive perfume and gourmet hors d'oeuvres, a combination that made the event feel both luxurious and exclusive. Waiters moved gracefully between guests, offering sparkling champagne and carefully plated appetizers, adding to the elegance of the evening. Every corner of the room told a story. A group of women in elegant gowns whispered and giggled, their conversation interrupted occasionally by bursts of laughter from nearby tables. At one end of the room, a few men in tailored suits debated business deals, their voices low but intense, hinting at high-stakes decisions. Musicians played soft, enchanting melodies in the background, their strings and piano notes blending seamlessly with the ambient noise of conversation and laughter. Everything about the night felt meticulously planned to impress, to dazzle, and to remind everyone present of the power and wealth in the room. Despite the glitz and glamour, there was an undercurrent of tension in the air. Everyone knew that in events like this, appearances were everything. Smiles could hide rivalry, and polite gestures could mask jealousy or resentment. The heiress moved through the crowd with poise, aware of the unspoken rules of such gatherings. Every glance she received, every whisper that reached her ears, mattered. She had attended countless events like this before, but tonight felt different, more charged, more electric, as if something unexpected might happen at any moment. Guests were eager to be seen with the heiress, knowing that being associated with someone so wealthy and famous could elevate their own social standing. Cameras flashed constantly, capturing the sparkling dresses, the perfectly coiffed hair, and the dazzling smiles. Every photo taken would later appear on social media and in tabloids, each one carefully curated to show the perfect life these people lived. But behind the smiles and the glamour, everyone was aware of the delicate balance of reputation. One wrong move, one poorly timed word, could turn admiration into gossip, and tonight, the stakes felt especially high. As the heiress continued to mingle, she was approached by familiar faces, exchanging polite words and carefully crafted compliments. She laughed at jokes she had heard 100 times before, nodded thoughtfully at conversations she had no real interest in, and maintained a posture that projected both elegance and authority. Every step she took, every gesture she made, seemed to signal that she belonged in this world, a world of wealth, beauty, and influence that most people could only dream about. The night promised excitement and drama, even if nobody could predict exactly what would happen. The room was a perfect mix of luxury and tension, of beauty and hidden conflict, setting the stage for the events that were about to unfold. Guests continued to arrive, each adding their own energy to the atmosphere. For the heiress, it was more than just a party, it was a stage, a place to shine, and a world where every eye was on her, watching, waiting, and ready to witness the next headline-making moment. As the gala continued, the initial excitement of arrivals and greetings began to settle into a more intimate buzz. Guests, now comfortably sipping champagne and nibbling on delicately plated appetizers, started to mingle more freely. But amid the glittering gowns, polished suits, and sparkling laughter, a subtle tension began to form, almost invisible but unmistakably there. The heiress, who had been effortlessly charming and gracious, found herself momentarily disrupted by the presence of another guest, a poised, confident black woman whose reputation in elite circles was growing just as rapidly as the heiress's own. There was an unspoken recognition between them, an awareness of power, influence, and visibility, and the air between them suddenly felt charged, as if everyone nearby could sense a storm quietly brewing. It started small, almost imperceptible. A remark, delivered in polite tones, was met with a sharp, controlled smile. A passing glance lingered a little too long, and gestures that might have been friendly to anyone else now carried subtle barbs. Guests nearby didn't immediately notice, but a few perceptive onlookers could feel the undercurrent, the kind of tension that often precedes a confrontation. In a room filled with wealth, elegance, and ego, even the slightest friction can escalate, and tonight, it seemed, the conditions were perfect. The two women navigated the crowd with a careful awareness of each other's presence. Every word spoken, every laugh shared with another guest, became a small display of status and dominance. The heiress, usually so composed, felt the prickling irritation of being challenged, not in public or direct criticism, but in a quiet, almost invisible way that made her claws twitch beneath her calm exterior. Her rival, fully aware of the effect she was having, maintained an air of effortless grace, smiling politely while subtly asserting herself with quiet confidence that only those familiar with the subtleties of high society could interpret. Around them, the gala went on as usual, but the energy subtly shifted. Conversations became softer, eyes darted toward the two women more frequently, and some guests began to sense that something was about to happen. It was the kind of tension that didn't require words, everyone could feel it in the room. Even the waiters, who moved between tables with precision and focus, seemed slightly more alert, their movements almost syncing with the nervous hum of anticipation. Musicians continued to play, their melodies contrasting sharply with the growing electricity in the air, and the glittering lights of the chandeliers seemed to highlight the intensity of every glance, every small gesture. The heiress attempted to maintain her composure, chatting politely with other socialites, laughing at jokes, and nodding along to conversations. But beneath the surface, her mind was preoccupied, analyzing, calculating, and strategizing. She was aware that tonight, the way she handled herself could define her image, not just for the people in the room, but for the countless others who would later see the photographs and social media posts from this event. Reputation mattered more than ever in a world where a single moment could become viral in seconds, and the presence of this other woman, with her calm confidence and poised demeanor, was challenging that carefully curated image. It wasn't just rivalry, it was a clash of energy, of presence. The black woman had a magnetic aura, drawing subtle attention without needing to demand it. Her laughter was genuine, her smile disarming, and her elegance understated but undeniable. Guests couldn't help but notice, and the heiress, who had always been used to being the center of attention, felt a flicker of irritation she hadn't anticipated. The room, now thick with tension, became a stage where unspoken challenges and subtle competitions quietly unfolded. A few moments later, their paths finally crossed directly. A polite exchange of words escalated almost imperceptibly, like the first small sparks of a fire. Neither woman raised her voice, but the sharpness of their tones, the deliberate precision of their gestures, and the way they held their posture made it clear that this was no ordinary conversation. Whispers from nearby guests grew louder, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and unease. The gala, meant to be a night of celebration, suddenly carried the weight of an impending storm. The tension built slowly but inexorably, a quiet drumbeat of anticipation that everyone in the room could sense, even if they couldn't quite name it. It was the kind of friction that only arises when power, reputation, and pride collide, and it promised to escalate in a way that no one could ignore. The heiress, despite her practiced composure, felt the pressure mounting, and the black woman, aware of the effect she was having, remained perfectly calm, almost as if she were daring the heiress to make the first move. By the time the gala reached the height of its evening, the energy between the two women had transformed from subtle tension into a palpable charge. Every glance, every gesture, every laugh in the room seemed to orbit around this unspoken conflict. Guests couldn't look away, and the stage was set for a confrontation that would shock everyone present and ultimately become the headline of the night. The atmosphere was electric, the room filled with beauty, wealth, and power, but also with a sense that something unexpected and dramatic was about to unfold. By now, the tension that had been quietly simmering throughout the evening reached a breaking point. The glittering gala, filled with laughter, music, and the soft clinking of glasses, suddenly felt charged with an almost electric energy. Guests who had been enjoying the night with casual smiles and polite conversation now found themselves glancing repeatedly at the heiress and the black woman, sensing that the quiet rivalry had shifted into something far more intense. It was a feeling in the air, one of anticipation mixed with disbelief, as if everyone instinctively knew that the moment would not pass without drama. The heiress, normally the picture of composure, now showed subtle signs of irritation. Her eyes narrowed slightly, her jaw tightened, and the elegant poise she had carried since entering the gala began to falter under the weight of frustration. Across the room, the black woman remained calm, her posture unshaken, but there was a sharpness in her gaze that suggested she was ready for whatever came next. Their previous polite words and forced smiles had dissolved into something more volatile, and the room seemed to hold its breath as the first sparks of confrontation ignited. It started with a sharp exchange of words. Neither voice was raised yet, but the tone carried a pointed edge, each sentence carefully chosen to assert dominance, subtly challenge the other, and test boundaries. The guests closest to them stiffened, some leaning forward to catch every word, sensing that this wasn't an ordinary disagreement. The words themselves might have seemed trivial to an outsider, but in the charged environment of wealth, power, and public scrutiny, they were loaded with meaning. Every gesture, every glance, every carefully timed pause heightened the tension, creating a stage where neither woman could afford to show weakness. And then it happened. In a shocking moment that seemed to freeze time, the heiress, her frustration finally overtaking her self-control, struck the black woman across the face. The sound, a sharp slap, echoed in the grand hall, silencing conversations and drawing gasps from the crowd. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, but for a moment, all eyes were on the confrontation. Cameras flashed instinctively as photographers tried to capture the moment, and guests instinctively recoiled, unsure whether to intervene or watch in stunned silence. It was a move so sudden and brazen that it immediately became the defining moment of the evening. Reactions were immediate and visceral. Some guests froze in shock, their hands hovering over glasses, mouths slightly open. Others whispered to each other, trying to make sense of the scene unfolding before them. A few brave souls stepped closer, unsure whether to pull the heiress back or check on the woman she had struck. The black woman herself, though stunned, held her ground with a mix of grace and quiet fury, her eyes locking on the heiress with an intensity that spoke volumes. She did not retaliate, at least not physically, but the room could feel the simmering anger radiating from her. The gala, meant to be a celebration of wealth, fashion, and influence, had transformed into a tense spectacle of human emotion. The soft music from the background seemed almost trivial now, a soundtrack to a scene filled with raw power, pride, and shock. Guests whispered feverishly to one another, their curiosity mingling with a sense of fear. After all, this was high society, a world where appearances were everything, and a single moment could irreversibly alter reputations. The event photographers, usually focused on capturing elegance and glamour, were now documenting drama, their lenses fixed on the heiress and the woman she had struck. The room's atmosphere shifted again as murmurs spread about who might step in next. Would someone attempt to physically separate them? Would security intervene, or would this escalate further? The tension was palpable, as if the air itself had thickened, and the gala that had begun with sparkling glasses and soft laughter now hummed with anxiety and anticipation. Even the waiters, moving carefully through the crowd with trays of champagne, seemed more cautious, almost tiptoeing around the charged scene. It was clear that this incident would not stay confined to the room. Everyone present understood, even without speaking, that this moment would travel far beyond the gala, shared online, in gossip columns, and across social media within hours. A single slap had become a symbol of confrontation, power, and the unpredictability of human behavior in the world of the wealthy. But just as the shock was peaking, a new presence would enter the scene, one that promised to shift the dynamics entirely and prevent the situation from spiraling completely out of control. The heiress, the black woman, and the entire crowd were about to experience the intervention that would define the rest of the evening. The moment the heiress's hand connected, sending shockwaves through the gala, the room seemed to hold its breath. Conversations that had been bubbling just seconds before dissolved into stunned silence. Glasses trembled in hands, laughter stopped mid-sentence, and the soft background music seemed to falter as everyone absorbed what had just happened. Guests who had come expecting a night of glamour and elegance were now witnessing something they had only ever seen in headlines or reality television, a live, explosive confrontation between two powerful women of high society. Some guests instinctively took a step back, unsure if they should intervene or merely observe. A few whispered urgently to each other, their voices tinged with disbelief. "Did she really just do that?" one woman murmured, her hand covering her mouth. A man nearby shook his head, muttering, "I can't believe this is happening here." Phones appeared from pockets and handbags almost immediately, cameras aimed to capture every second of the drama. Everyone instinctively knew that these images and videos would be shared online within minutes, spreading far beyond the confines of the glittering ballroom. The black woman, struck but unbowed, maintained a composed exterior, though her eyes burned with a mixture of surprise and restrained fury. Guests admired her poise, whispering to each other about her remarkable calm under pressure. Some even began to compare her reaction to the heiress's impulsive action, debating among themselves whose behavior reflected true power and confidence. Socialites and elites, who were usually so concerned with etiquette and appearances, found themselves caught between admiration, shock, and a kind of guilty fascination. The atmosphere in the room grew electric, as though the entire gala had shifted from a celebration to a spectacle. Conversations resumed, but they were now punctuated by references to the incident. Guests speculated in hushed tones, "Do you think anyone will step in? I wonder if security will handle it. What will the media say?" Every word, every glance between attendees carried the weight of anticipation, as though the entire room had become a live audience to an unfolding drama. Meanwhile, social media users who were already attending the gala began filming and posting snippets in real time. Within minutes, hashtags started trending, spreading across Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Screens everywhere lit up with videos of the slap, GIFs, and comments from viewers both fascinated and horrified. People not present at the event speculated wildly, drawing conclusions and forming opinions, turning the gala into a public spectacle with millions of virtual witnesses. The heiress's impulsive action, meant to assert dominance in that room, had now given the world a dramatic window into the world of privilege, power, and high-stakes social dynamics. The reactions in the room itself varied widely. Some guests tried to laugh nervously, attempting to diffuse the tension, while others whispered strategic observations, analyzing motives, intentions, and potential consequences. A few seasoned socialites leaned closer to one another, discussing how such a moment might affect alliances, friendships, and rivalries in their social circles. Even the staff, waiters, security, and coordinators, felt the energy shift. Their movements, which had been smooth and precise moments before, became more careful, almost cautious, as though the air itself carried a warning. Some guests felt a sense of discomfort mixed with intrigue. In a room built on appearances, wealth, and control, witnessing such an unfiltered human moment, a raw, impulsive act, was both scandalous and oddly captivating. It reminded them that even in high society, behind the glitz and glitter, emotions could erupt, and reputations could be threatened in an instant. The incident sparked private conversations about power, privilege, and human behavior. Observers speculated not just about the act itself, but about the history and underlying tension that had led to this explosive moment. The gala, once a symbol of sophistication, had become a microcosm of society's fascination with conflict and drama. Guests, whether they admitted it or not, were hooked, drawn into the narrative unfolding before their eyes. Some felt sympathy for the black woman, some excitement at witnessing the heiress's boldness, and others were caught in the thrill of scandal. Cameras clicked, phones recorded, and whispers turned into quiet debates, all capturing the moment in vivid detail. Even as a sense of chaos began to settle, the realization dawned on everyone present that the night was far from over. The energy in the room hinted that a higher authority, someone capable of restoring order, might soon appear. The guests sensed that while the initial confrontation was shocking, the next moments would define the evening. And in the back of their minds, everyone knew that this incident would not only define the gala but also dominate headlines, social media trends, and conversations for days to come. Just as the room seemed suspended in shock and whispered speculation, a new presence quietly, but unmistakably, made itself felt. The guests, still murmuring and glancing between the heiress and the black woman, began to sense a shift in the energy of the gala. Heads turned instinctively toward the entrance as the soft hum of conversation dropped to a low murmur. It wasn't loud footsteps or a dramatic entrance that drew attention, it was the aura of authority that seemed to precede the man before he even appeared fully in view. The billionaire father, a figure known for his immense wealth and unshakable influence in both business and high society, had arrived. He walked in with the measured calm of someone accustomed to commanding attention without demanding it. His suit was impeccably tailored, his posture perfect, and his gaze steady. The chandeliers above reflected faint glimmers off his cufflinks, but it was his presence itself, the quiet, undeniable authority, that caused the room to subtly shift. Conversation stuttered, glasses froze mid-air, and even the musicians paused for a beat, as if instinctively recognizing that this was no ordinary guest. People instinctively straightened, feeling both awe and a touch of fear. In a room filled with power, this man radiated it more profoundly than anyone else present. The heiress, still flush with frustration and adrenaline from her impulsive action, froze when she saw him. Her posture stiffened, her hands slightly trembling, and for the first time in the evening, the confident mask she wore so effortlessly faltered. She knew immediately that her father's arrival was not just timely, it was decisive. He had the ability to control the room, to diffuse tension, and to ensure that consequences, subtle or severe, would follow. Guests whispered among themselves, noting the unspoken truth: when this man entered a space, no one dared to act recklessly. Slowly, the billionaire father moved through the crowd with deliberate steps. His eyes scanned the room like a hawk, taking in every detail: the guests, the photographers, the subtle postures of people who thought they were unnoticed. When his gaze finally landed on the heiress, it was sharp yet calm, conveying a complex mixture of disappointment, authority, and control. She could feel the weight of his presence pressing down, a reminder that no matter the chaos or the drama, her actions had consequences beyond her own perception. The room itself seemed to respond. The soft hum of whispers quieted further, and even the black woman, poised as ever, instinctively recognized the shift in dynamics. The energy that had been charged with confrontation now tilted toward resolution, or at least, toward the intervention of someone with enough influence to prevent the situation from spiraling entirely out of control. Guests sensed that this was a pivotal moment, the turning point that would decide how the evening, and perhaps reputations, would unfold. The billionaire father approached the center of the room, moving like someone who had rehearsed the steps of authority countless times, yet with the natural ease that only genuine power can command. He paused just enough to make his presence known, his sharp gaze sweeping across the crowd. People instinctively made way, whispering under their breath about the man whose decisions had shaped industries, wealth empires, and even social hierarchies. Cameras that had been focused on the confrontation now pivoted to capture him, understanding that the story had shifted, the father had arrived, and the narrative was about to change dramatically. He stopped a few feet from the heiress and the black woman, his eyes first meeting his daughter's. There was no shouting, no dramatic gesturing, just a calm but firm authority that filled the room. His presence alone seemed to cool the tension, as if the air had been recalibrated. The heiress straightened immediately, her earlier arrogance replaced by an awareness of accountability. Every subtle movement, every gesture now carried weight, and she knew that her father's intervention would be decisive in determining how the rest of the night would unfold. The guests, meanwhile, watched in awe. Some whispered that they had seen his power before in business negotiations, but never in such a vivid, immediate social context. Others simply held their breath, captivated by the dramatic transformation of the room. The gala, which had moments ago been a stage for conflict, now seemed to pivot toward resolution. The billionaire father's arrival was not just an interruption, it was a command, a reminder that in this world of wealth and influence, authority could shift the course of events in an instant. Even the black woman, composed as she was, felt the subtle but undeniable shift. She didn't flinch or step back, but there was a new layer of acknowledgement in her gaze, recognizing that the man now dominating the room was not just any observer, he was a force capable of ending the confrontation without raising a hand. The guests understood the stakes. They were witnessing a rare and dramatic moment, where power, reputation, and intervention intersected, and they were all part of the audience to this high-stakes spectacle. As he stood there, surveying the room, it became clear that the confrontation that had shocked everyone minutes before was about to reach its resolution. The billionaire father's calm, commanding presence had shifted the energy of the gala completely. The heiress, the black woman, and all the attendees now understood that while the conflict had erupted with emotion, it would end with authority, and that authority had just arrived. The moment the billionaire father arrived, the room's atmosphere shifted almost instantly. What had been a heated, chaotic scene, filled with tension and unspoken challenges, began to recalibrate under the weight of his presence. The heiress, who had just moments before acted on impulse, now felt a sudden, undeniable pressure. Every eye in the room seemed to focus on her, every whisper carried an edge of expectation, and the subtle authority of her father radiated like a quiet storm ready to restore order. He walked slowly toward the center of the room, his gaze locked on his daughter. There was no hurry in his steps, no dramatic flourish, yet every movement spoke volumes. It was the kind of presence that demanded attention without raising a voice, a command that was felt rather than heard. The heiress's impulsive energy, once brimming with arrogance and defiance, faltered. Her hands trembled slightly, and she straightened her posture, aware that any further misstep could have consequences far beyond the room's four walls. When he reached the heiress, he didn't shout, scold, or make a scene. Instead, he placed a firm hand lightly on her shoulder, a gesture that was at once protective and authoritative. His eyes met hers, conveying a clear but unspoken message: control your actions, or face the repercussions. The room seemed to hold its collective breath, sensing that this silent communication was more powerful than any public confrontation could ever be. The heiress, humbled and confronted with the reality of accountability, took a small step back, her previous defiance giving way to awareness and, perhaps, embarrassment. Turning slightly, the father addressed the black woman with calm courtesy, a gesture that immediately diffused tension. His tone was even, respectful, yet carried the unmistakable authority of someone who would not tolerate disrespect under his watch. "I apologize for my daughter's behavior," he said, voice steady and commanding. "This will not happen again." The words themselves were simple, but they carried immense weight. The black woman, poised and composed, nodded slightly, recognizing both the sincerity and the power behind the statement. She accepted the apology with grace, and the room, sensing the shift, exhaled collectively. Guests who had been frozen in shock moments before began to relax, though the energy in the room remained charged. The intervention had been decisive yet subtle, restoring order without the need for chaos or confrontation. Socialites whispered about the scene, admiring the billionaire father's ability to command attention and resolve the conflict almost effortlessly. Those closest to the heiress understood that this was a lesson in control, power, and responsibility, a reminder that in high society, appearances and behavior carried as much weight as wealth itself. Even the heiress, though shaken, began to compose herself under her father's calm guidance. She straightened her dress, adjusted her posture, and offered a polite, albeit slightly forced, nod to the black woman. The gesture, though small, signaled her acknowledgement of both her misstep and the corrective presence of her father. For everyone watching, it was clear that the confrontation had reached a resolution, but it was a resolution framed not by conflict or retaliation, but by authority, accountability, and the subtle reinforcement of social hierarchy. The audience, previously on the edge of tension, now found themselves captivated by the elegance of the resolution. The dramatic slap had been the catalyst, but the billionaire father's calm, commanding intervention became the defining moment. Cameras continued to flash, capturing not the chaos itself, but the way the room shifted under the weight of one man's authority. Conversations began to return to normal, though with an undercurrent of discussion about power, influence, and the unexpected spectacle they had just witnessed. Even the staff, who had been moving cautiously to avoid getting caught in the confrontation, relaxed slightly as the tension dissipated. Waiters resumed their work, carefully serving champagne and hors d'oeuvres, while musicians returned to the gentle background melodies that had been interrupted by the drama. Yet, the atmosphere had permanently changed. The gala, once purely a celebration of wealth and elegance, had now become a memorable tableau of power, human emotion, and the unexpected ways that authority could restore balance. For the heiress, the intervention was a lesson in restraint, reputation, and the unseen consequences of impulsive behavior. For the black woman, it was a moment of grace, composure, and quiet vindication. And for the guests, it was a dramatic, unforgettable scene that would be recounted for weeks, shared across social media, and dissected for its mix of glamour, tension, and the undeniable force of influence. The intervention and resolution were complete, not with shouting or scandal, but with quiet, undeniable authority that left the room in awe and reminded everyone present that, in the world of wealth and power, presence and control mattered more than any impulsive act. By the time the gala began to return to its intended rhythm, the incident had already carved its place in everyone's memory. What had started as a glittering, star-studded evening of champagne, designer gowns, and polite networking had become a defining moment, one that would be dissected, debated, and shared far beyond the grand ballroom. Guests whispered quietly, many still replaying the dramatic slap in their minds, trying to piece together how such a shocking event could unfold in a room filled with elegance and wealth. The initial shock gradually gave way to analysis and commentary, as high society and the general public alike began to process what had happened. Within minutes, smartphones were out, capturing the aftermath, recording reactions, and sharing snippets on social media. Clips of the confrontation, once posted online, spread like wildfire. Instagram stories, TikTok videos, and Twitter threads exploded with commentary, hashtags, and speculation. The hashtags themselves began trending almost immediately, hashtag heiress drama, hashtag gala scandal, hashtag billionaire intervention, hashtag viral moment. Millions of viewers across the world, most of whom had never attended such an exclusive event, now felt as if they were witnessing the drama live. Memes appeared within hours, GIFs captured the precise moment of the slap, and opinion threads debated every nuance of body language, tone, and intent. Traditional media didn't take long to follow suit. Online news outlets, celebrity gossip blogs, and social columns quickly picked up the story. Headlines screamed about the heiress, her billionaire father, and the tense moment that had captivated onlookers. Pundits speculated about the social ramifications, the potential fallouts, and the implications of privilege and power in high society. Television panels discussed the incident, replaying video clips and analyzing the behavior of the heiress, the black woman, and her father. It became a story not just about a moment of conflict, but about wealth, status, accountability, and public perception. Back at the gala, the guests who had been present found themselves both spectators and participants in a drama that now extended far beyond the room. Many whispered about the heiress's impulsive behavior, speculating on the reasons behind it. Was it pride, frustration, jealousy, or a simple lapse in self-control? Others praised the black woman for maintaining composure, interpreting her calm reaction as a display of dignity and strength. Conversations at tables shifted from casual greetings to detailed analyses of social dynamics, reputation management, and the intricate rules that governed elite circles. Even after the initial shock faded, the impact of the incident lingered. Invitations to future events, social alliances, and personal reputations became topics of speculation. Who would continue to be welcomed in these exclusive circles? Who had been silently judged for standing too close or looking away at the wrong moment? The gala had not only witnessed a personal confrontation but also created ripples that would subtly influence relationships, trust, and hierarchy in high society. The heiress herself faced immediate consequences, both public and private. While her father's calm intervention had prevented the scene from escalating further, the reality of social accountability was unavoidable. Photographs, videos, and eyewitness accounts would follow her for months, if not years. Even in circles of immense wealth, where mistakes could often be overlooked, the combination of impulsive behavior and viral exposure posed a new kind of challenge, one where influence could protect, but public opinion could not be ignored. The black woman, meanwhile, emerged with her dignity intact. Social media users and commentators praised her grace under pressure, framing her response as a model of poise and restraint. She became a symbol of composure in a world that often highlighted spectacle over substance, and her presence at the gala, once just part of the social elite, now gained attention for its quiet strength and resilience. As the night continued, the gala gradually returned to its intended pace, but the energy had shifted permanently. The confrontation, the intervention, and the ripple effects of the incident had left a mark. Guests talked, speculated, and shared their own versions of the story, each narrative adding new layers to the drama. Outside the ballroom, the digital world amplified every nuance, every reaction, and every image, ensuring that the story would not remain confined to those present. It became a moment that transcended a single event, reflecting broader conversations about power, privilege, accountability, and human behavior. By the time the gala ended, it was clear that this would not be just another social event in the annals of high society. It had become a defining moment, one that would be referenced, remembered, and analyzed in the weeks, months, and possibly years to come. For the heiress, the black woman, and the billionaire father alike, the evening had proven that in a world of wealth and influence, actions, both impulsive and deliberate, could ripple far beyond the walls of a single grand ballroom. And for everyone else, the incident had provided a compelling story of drama, power, and human emotion that would dominate conversations across social media, news outlets, and elite circles alike. As the gala lights dimmed and the final guests departed, the dramatic events of the evening lingered like an invisible imprint, refusing to fade from memory. What had begun as a night of luxury, glamour, and celebration had transformed into a story of human emotion, power, and consequence, one that would be analyzed, discussed, and remembered for years. In the quiet aftermath, both the participants and the observers found themselves reflecting on the deeper lessons hidden within the chaos. For the heiress, the night was an unforgettable lesson in restraint, humility, and accountability. Her impulsive action, fueled by pride and a momentary lapse in judgment, had not only disrupted the gala but also placed her reputation under intense scrutiny. She realized, perhaps more clearly than ever, that wealth and status could not shield her from the consequences of her behavior. Even in a world where influence often bends rules, one's actions, especially when witnessed by many, carry weight far beyond the immediate moment. The intervention by her father had saved her from a public spectacle spiraling out of control, but it also highlighted the importance of guidance, awareness, and self-control. For the black woman, the evening became a testament to grace under pressure. Her calm composure in the face of aggression earned admiration from those present and viewers worldwide. She demonstrated that strength is often quiet, dignity is steadfast, and power can manifest through resilience rather than impulsive actions. Her ability to navigate the situation without retaliation reinforced the idea that true influence is not always visible, it is often measured by how one responds to adversity with poise and intelligence. The guests, too, carried lessons from the event, many unspoken but deeply felt. They witnessed firsthand how moments of conflict, no matter how fleeting, can shape social dynamics, relationships, and reputations. Conversations would continue long after the gala, with speculation about alliances, judgments, and the subtle hierarchies of wealth and privilege. The incident served as a vivid reminder that human behavior is unpredictable, and even the most controlled environments can become stages for drama when ego, emotion, and power collide. Beyond the ballroom, the public and social media reflected a broader cultural dialogue. Millions of viewers worldwide debated the roles of privilege, accountability, and social decorum. The incident sparked conversations about how society perceives wealth and power, how impulsive actions are magnified in the age of social media, and how interventions, whether subtle or overt, can prevent situations from escalating into irreversible consequences. The gala had become more than an isolated event. It had transformed into a microcosm of society's fascination with human behavior, morality, and justice. Ultimately, the gala illustrated a series of intertwined lessons: that privilege does not excuse impulsive behavior, that composure in moments of crisis can redefine perceptions, and that authority and intervention, when applied wisely, can restore order and prevent unnecessary harm. It reminded everyone, both inside the room and beyond, that actions have consequences, reputations are fragile, and even in a world of wealth and influence, human emotion remains a force to be reckoned with. For the heiress, the black woman, and the billionaire father, the night had lasting consequences, shaping how each would navigate their lives and relationships moving forward. For the guests, the media, and the public, it became a story to learn from, discuss, and remember, a narrative rich with drama, human insight, and lessons about power, restraint, and responsibility. The gala had ended, but the reflections it inspired, the conversations it sparked, and the lessons it conveyed would resonate far beyond the shimmering walls of that one unforgettable night. In the end, the story was not just about a single act of aggression or a dramatic intervention. It was about the broader truths of human behavior, the delicate balance of power and humility, and a universal understanding that every action, no matter how fleeting, carries weight. The heiress's moment of impulsivity, the black woman's calm response, and the father's authoritative intervention together created a narrative that transcended wealth and glamour, offering timeless insights into character, influence, and the unpredictable nature of human interaction.